record. Okay, so I'm just going to proceed unless Nancy, you're my buddy to let me know if something's not working here. Okay, so I am Monica Reinhardt Gorney. I was on last week. This week we are talking about emotions, our weight, and our health. I am a trained mental health counselor with 22 years of experience. So this is what I spend a lot of time doing, although I do many other forms of counseling. So first, before we get started, we have to read the disclaimer, so I will do that. This information should not be used as a suitable substitute for professional diagnoses and or treatment from a qualified medical provider. Always seek the advice of a medical physician or a qualified medical provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or read here. Any actions you take as a result of information you obtain in this course is your own responsibility, and no participating member of the program can be held accountable for it. This information is not intended to be patient education, nor should it create any patient-physician relationship. We do not claim to diagnose or cure disease. We are presenting general information about the human body. The information in this course is not medical advice and should not be treated as such. It is provided for entertainment purposes only. AO Scan technology is not a medical device. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product or any of Solux LLC products and any supplements are not intended to diagnose, treat, or mitigate any disease. If you are sick, please consult with your healthcare provider or physician. Okay, so as I shared in the previous week, we try to design this course to build upon each other, with each week giving you information to hopefully interpret the next week even better. So last week I discussed nutrients and the fact that many of us are nutrient deficient. So what I just want to say here is that we must be getting the nutrients we need each day in order to have any chance of balanced emotions. We can't ask our body to run on empty and then expect it to serve us well. Just a reminder, if you run your vital scan, you want to be looking for the micro and macro mineral balance, or looking at those categories. You want to be looking at amino acids. You want to be looking at digestive functions. Those are, it's a scan you want to run daily, and you want to be just looking for deficiencies in those areas, because if you are deficient, your body cannot be, balanced. So one of my former clients who actually hired me to help his kids with educational things happened to be a psychiatrist. And he mentioned that the majority of the people who came to his practice were middle-aged women who were experiencing depression. They were referred by their general physician to be treated for depression. And what he told me was that the first thing he did was run some blood work on those patients, and he almost always found that the women were exceptionally low in vitamin D. They may have still been in normal range. If you remember last week, we talked about the normal range on blood work being from 40 to 90, but really being in the 80s is really an ideal place. So he found that with proper vitamin D supplementation, that many of those cases of depression resolved. So I thought it was fantastic that a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, looked at that route before just prescribing, a medication. That said, also, if we are carrying a toxic load, whether that be metals, parasites, other toxins, pesticides, our brain and body cannot function at capacity. Again, when running that vital scan, you can be looking at your toxic load to be pinpointing culprits. We absolutely must be getting a good night's sleep also to have balanced emotions. Just recently, I was working with someone in a household where there is severe sleep deprivation due to a toddler, and everybody's emotions are running high, including the little toddler who I scanned, who was showing, very high levels of stress hormones. So, if we're not getting a good night's sleep, nobody can really handle anything that's coming their way well. Nancy will be tackling that topic, I think, in not next week, but the week after. She'll be talking more about the topic of sleep. The gut-brain connection, it's real, it's powerful. The majority of our neurotransmitters are generated in our gut. And so if our gut is not healthy and strong, we are likely to have imbalances in our neurotransmitters. Just as an example, if we are generating too much serotonin, that might look like agitation. If we are generating too little, that might look like depression. Dopamine is implicated in ADD and memory type issues. So, our neurotransmitters are really important. And again, I believe they say something around 80% are generated in our gut. So this is why gut health has been a big topic in this training. So in Western medicine, the approach to treating, brain, body, emotions is to group a set of symptoms, give them a name, and then prescribe a medication. As I always like to say, there is a time and place for Western medicine. If you, for example, I got a very infected tick bite, I had to go to the hospital, I needed that IV antibiotics. There's time and place for that, but generally speaking, when we're looking at wellness, the approach that I like to take is more of what I would call the Eastern medicine approach, which is to look for the root cause of whatever it is that we may be experiencing. And for many people, that root cause is emotional. So we like to identify that cause, treat it, make lifestyle changes, and then we often see that symptoms resolve. Okay, so some people may have been on Nancy's, before we started the course, we had an opportunity for people to come on and ask some questions about what the course was going to be about and just meet the people who were involved. I did a little demonstration. I'm going to do this right now without seeing myself. It's a little bit challenging, but hopefully it will be effective. I actually learned this from someone who practices the neuro-emotional technique, and I will talk about that technique at the very end. But this is a little rod, and it's a little conductor of electricity. If you see, I'm going to hold up a book here. If I place that against that, it's not going to do anything. However, if I place both of my hands on this, it becomes a conductor of electricity, and that's because we as human beings are conductors of electricity. Some people have a hard time believing that, even with this little demonstration here. So then I talk to them about, when someone has a heart attack, the first thing you see people, EMTs do is they get out a defibrillator, which is an electric shock mechanism, and they shock your heart, and that is to reestablish the pattern that was going on in the heart to begin with. So we are giant conductors of electricity. If you're familiar with the Heart Math Institute, they've established that the energetic field of the heart can be measured up to 3 feet away, 3 feet outside of our human body. And the magnetic field of our heart is 100 times that of our brains. I find that so fascinating because I feel like there's just so much focus on the brain in terms of emotions, neurotransmitters, and feelings. Yet, interestingly, there's all this evidence for the power of our hearts. So the AO scan it's just this amazing device that's working with our energy fields and our frequencies. And it's just such a powerful tool. So, we are here to, be showing you how to use it. As we have also discussed in previous weeks, a huge amount of our bodies are water. So if you have not read The Hidden Messages in Water by Dr. Masaru Emoto, I would encourage you to do that. It's available on Amazon, and shortly I'm going to show you just a couple images from the book. But as we've learned, like I said, our brains, our various organs, our cells, they all contain a huge amount of water. What Dr. Emoto set out to do was see if he could capture the cellular structure of water in imaging via pictures. Snowflake crystals had been caught on film for a really long time, but he was setting out to see, could he capture the cellular structure of water through photography? So not frozen water, not snowflakes, but just liquid water in a glass. He was able to do that. And what I'm about to show you are some images from his book and his experiment. what he was able to prove was that he asked people to emote something. It could be something angry, it could be something happy, it could be something peaceful, but he asked them to sit next to a glass of water and to, focus on a very specific emotion. And what he saw was that the cellular structure of the water changed in result to what the person was thinking. So that might sound really out there to you. So now I'm going to show you exactly what he captured. So when he asked people to think about really positive, happy feelings like gratitude, love, and gratitude, the picture here is showing this beautiful crystal. Next to that, as you will see, he asked people to think, really negative emotions. In one instance, the top image here, he was asking them to emote or even say aloud, "You fool," or "You make me sick." If you think about those words, unfortunately, for better or worse, many of us have either said them or been on the receiving end of them. As you can see, it literally affected the cellular structure of the water, making those crystals turn into something just really disjointed and ugly and not beautiful. So, it's really powerful when we think about the fact if we can affect the cellular structure of the water in a glass next to us, imagine how our thoughts and our feelings and our words are affecting our own body's cellular structure. Just a couple more pictures because it's just so pretty. He had people, either say or think, "Thank you," and "I'm sorry." And again, such powerful words in our world of therapy. But just you can see just structurally how beautifully the water responded to those thoughts and words. And then what I'm going to show you next is a bit in line with what I was teaching about last week, and that is the impact of various things that have entered our environment. So if he sat the glass of water next to the television, as you can see, the crystals became distorted. Same thing with the microwave oven, same thing with the computer, and even more so with mobile cellular phones. So if you think about the fact that most of us are exposed to these things pretty frequently, it's so important to think about how these things are affecting, us cellularly, structurally. These things are having an impact, on ourselves as much as our emotions are. Okay. So now that we've seen for ourselves the evidence that our emotions have a powerful effect on ourselves, therefore our health, we ourselves and our words can have an impact on the health of others, and others and life experience have a very powerful effect on ourselves, our health, and our emotions. There are quite a few large-scale studies at this point that show that people who think they will recover faster from a surgery do. So once again, just sort of objective data captured that someone's thought process about how they will recover actually affects how they do. The important thing when we're thinking about emotions is that we are all carrying our own lifetime of baggage. And studies are showing that we are also carrying our ancestors' baggage, and that our ancestors' baggage has the power to turn on and off our own genetic expression. In the fields of homeopathy, they use the word miasms, and one of my first introductions into using the AO scan was joining a group that Nadia ran on clearing ourselves of generational miasms. But there's an entire field called homeopathy that is based on the fact that we are carrying, genetic information, whatever, energetic information from our ancestors. But of course, we then accumulate our own through our own lifetime experience. The impact of trauma, both physical and emotional, is real. So whether it's an injury, a illness, or emotional abuse, these things affect us cellularly, and also, of course, then our health. So our goal here is to get to the root cause of why we are struggling, whether that's physical or emotional, figure out why we are struggling, and then develop a plan to address that. So another concept we've talked about is neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity means that our brain is absolutely capable of developing new pathways and therefore new skills, new emotions throughout our lifetime. I'm not sure how many people here were educated at the time that I was, but this is going back, 25, 30 years ago. I was taught in some of the best institutions in this country that our brain was essentially hardwired at birth and that there was a very short window of time after our birth to impact brain development. But that's actually been categorically proven false. Yet, for whatever reason, it's not really, that information has not really made its way into the fields of psychology or education or even medicine in any super practical way. I've come across integrative doctors and people who've pursued additional training who are very aware and work with these concepts. But overall, many people may be hearing, for the first time, the whole concept of neuroplasticity. So I'm going to talk about a fantastic book toward the end here if you want to dive deeper into that subject. So that said, to me, I feel like it's super important for everyone and anyone to realize that we are not stuck. We do not have to accept being in a certain place. I'm a big believer in genetics, but genetics offer an explanation. They don't offer a death sentence, I guess is the best way I'd like to think of it that way. So we are always able to grow and change and heal. And that's, the foundation of how I approach my practice, and anyone else who is involved in this course approaches theirs. So the first thing that I want to say is that we do not need permission or validation to defend ourselves, to take distance from relationships that are not healthy, or even potentially terminate relationships that are not healthy. Our feelings are enough. And if you need way more validation to that thought, again, at the end, I will be listing a set of books for wonderful resources, but the book Dodging Energy Vampires by Dr. Christiane Northrup is, it's just fantastic. It's written for people who are, empaths, which I consider myself to be, as well as many other people who are in healing professions tend to be. And I think that a lot of people who seek alternative helps they also tend to be empaths. But she talks about how our experiences with others can become, very draining, that people can literally, suck the life out of us. And that most of us have been taught, by our parents, grandparents, that, our job is to be respectful and compliant and kind and happy. And so her book is basically just a giant piece of literature that will give you permission to honor your gut feelings and your instincts about your relationships and the places that you go and maybe the places that you work. I'm here to really just encourage people to pay attention to, what we call your gut instincts. Your gut instinct is an important signal from your body. And I feel like many of us have learned to sort of override those instincts. And it can be really, I'm going to say, uncomfortable for people as they start to trust that their gut instincts are very valuable. I see a lot of people who kind of waver and feel really uncertain, and they're just looking for just someone to just sort of reassure them that those uncomfortable feelings are okay. It's a process to go from basically discounting your gut instincts to trusting that they mean something and that you should listen to them and you should honor them. But I guess I'm here to say we give you permission to step away from anything that is toxic to give yourself the ability to heal. Staying in a stressful situation or relationship raises our cortisol, our stress hormones. So if we choose to stay in a situation that is making us not feel good, just be aware there is an actual health consequence for that in terms of, cortisol going up. And if your cortisol is raised, it's almost impossible to lose weight. So, this is a serious topic, and I feel like sometimes weight can feel a little bit superficial, but I just want to say that if you are looking to lose weight, if that was your main reason for coming here, if you are, in a situation that's very stressful and chronically stressful, it is nearly impossible to lose weight. Even if you are on a highly restrictive caloric diet, if you are excessively stressed and that cortisol is high, you are not going to lose weight. So if that's your goal, one of the first things you want to do is look at what is causing you to feel that stress and how can you change those circumstances. I already hit on the top or the point of that many of us were taught, and many of us were taught nothing at all about healthy relationships, how to express emotions, how to work through powerful emotions like anger, and resentment. We were taught to respect our elders, even if that elder was being disrespectful. We were taught, it was our job as the younger people to do that. And so I'm just here to say that that's just not a healthy idea. And hopefully, as more and more people hear that, we can be teaching a younger generation, more effective ideas surrounding emotions. But anyway, so maintaining unpleasant feelings for a long period of time absolutely has health consequences. And in her book, The Dodging Energy Vampires, Dr. Northrup actually gives some pretty significant data on monks. If you're familiar with monks and sort of the way they go about life, is their whole idea is just it's peace, it's no conflict. But what she found, or she didn't find it, but other studies have found it, is that in order to maintain that idea of absolute peace, generally speaking, people are suppressing things that have made them unhappy or uncomfortable. And so what people are finding is that some of these colonies of monks who are, supposed to be healthy were actually experiencing obesity and type 2 diabetes. So I would say the main point of her book is that the suppressing of emotions is probably one of the most toxic things that you can do, to your health. So that said, it's how can we use our AO scan to give us some information and some insight into our emotional health. So two of the biggest features for that are our chakras and our meridians. So when we look at that Eastern medicine concept, in Hinduism, they believe in chakras. Chakras are energy pathways that correspond to nerve pathways, organ systems, and emotions in our body. So you want to be looking at the results of your scan for your chakras, and probably everyone is caught on that the left side, well, it's probably reversed on the screen, but if you're looking at your cell phone screen when you've run your scan, it's the left side is your current and the right side is your previous scan. What you want to be looking for, hopefully is all green. But if you don't have all green, you want to be looking at, why is that? And so, I'm not going to read the chart here, but you can just take a look at that. And it's super important to be looking at what are the emotions that are potentially blocking you from reaching that balance. Things like fear, shame, guilt. These are things that we all experience. Sometimes they're in response to really minor situations and it passes, but other times they're a result of chronic situations. And so that's what we want to be paying attention to. I've been using this in my practice more and more with teenagers and helping teenagers to identify what their stress is, and also as a means to communicate, with their parents to say, here are some of the powerful emotions that they are experiencing and how can we help, resolve some of that. So the meridians come from Chinese medicine, and if you've ever had acupressure or acupuncture, they are working with this concept of meridians and inserting the needles into the various points that correspond with these meridians. So if you go to any sort of somebody who's practicing any form of Chinese medicine whatsoever, they're going to spend a lot of time helping you understand the emotions that are connected to these various organ systems. I love to talk about the liver. It's kind of my favorite organ for a lot of reasons, but and I'm going to scroll through some different screens here where you'll be able to focus on some of this, but the liver, for example, is associated with anger. And so last week when I was talking about potentially doing something like a liver cleanse, I think an important thing to understand if you are undertaking any sort of health cleanse is that as you are, cleaning out your various organs, you will likely be also releasing emotions that are stored within those organs. So, I just think a lot of times people will say, "Oh, I thought I was going to feel so much better, but I'm experiencing, sadness or anxiety, or, in my case, I did a lot of work on my liver, and so I'll say I for sure was angry, snappy. It's really important to give yourself permission as you are working on these cleanses to experience those emotions, but also, give a little heads up to whomever you may share your household with to say, I'm going through these things, and you may see, some more emotionality, in me as a result of what I'm doing here to improve my health. And I'm really big on journaling and kind of writing down the thoughts and feelings that you're having as you're going through this, to try to, I guess, process specific memories or emotions that maybe these might be things very recent. They could be very much in your past. And sometimes we experience things that we don't even really understand. And perhaps that is a result of, a miasm, something that we're carrying from a previous generation. And I know Nadia, like I said, had a previous group on clearing miasms, and I believe Solex just recently also had a speaker talking about miasms. I haven't had a chance to watch the YouTube channel on that, but I think that if you feel like you've dug through your own stuff and you're not finding anything, then you might be looking at, what might you be carrying, from a previous generation. And just to give an example of that, my parents survived World War II. They came to America on a U.S. warship. My grandparents were prisoners of war and under various circumstances that were obviously very stressful. My grandmother was in a Russian coal mine for a period of time. And so in our family, we have a fair amount of lung related issues that I'm very sure were a result of what she was breathing in, and then that transferring to my mom, and then that transferring to me and to my children. So you might be an interesting way to think a little bit about your own ancestors, and maybe what some of the conditions that they went through, and how those things may be impacting your own health. But again, what I have up on the screen here is just what everybody should be able to see on their daily scan. Is take a look at those meridians, take a look to see if there's a consistent pattern. When I had the real flu a bunch of weeks ago, a lot of these were really out of whack when they normally aren't. So we're looking at is there a temporary explanation for these results, or is there a more chronic explanation for these results? So again, these are just screenshots of what you would be seeing, and the explanations that go with these various meridians. I also added on for people, because I get a lot of people telling me this, and so I think it can be really helpful for some people. On the screen here is also the Chinese meridian clock. And these correspond with the time of day. The interior circle here is AM, and the exterior circle is PM. So if you find yourself, waking up, some people say, "Oh my gosh, I'm always waking up between 1 and 2 in the morning." Well, that's your liver. So if you're chronically waking up between 1 and 2 in the morning, your liver's probably trying to tell you something. So if you find that you have a symptom that is always appearing at a certain time of day, it might be really helpful for you to just take a look at this Chinese meridian clock, in addition to the information that is provided to us by the meridian chart. I see a lot of people struggling, with anxiety, or, like I said, anger, depression. So again, these things tend to be linked to things like our kidneys and our liver. And within Chinese medicine, different organs work synergistically together. So if the liver is out of balance, we tend to see kind of issues with the kidneys, and so forth. So anyway, I just really encourage you to not just bypass those charts. I feel like sometimes it can get a little bit more interesting to look at, environmental allergies or our food sensitivities or viral or parasitic load. Those things are also all extremely helpful, but I really encourage you when we're looking at emotions to look at the chakras and the meridian charts. Okay, and then of course we have the beautiful inner voice tool. And so I'm guessing most people have used it at this point, but your 10-second recording, you're always starting with "my name is," you state your name, you talk about whatever you want for 10 seconds, and then it gives you that lovely report with the 4 colors. So again, I'm asking people to take a look at what results are coming up. Are you seeing patterns? A great way to keep track of that is through journaling. So, I remember in the beginning, I thought, oh, well, I'll just remember what it said the day before, but I didn't, and I don't. So I think that keeping a journal and looking for, what spectrum of emotions are coming up for you, and then be thinking about why might that be? That is extremely important. And one technique I spoke with somebody about just recently is the idea of, in addition to journaling for your own self, if you have something that you need to process with somebody else, it is wonderful if the other person is willing to sit with you and listen and talk and do that in a respectful manner. But sometimes we find ourselves in situations where the other person either they might be dismissive, they might yell, they might say, "I'm not listening to you," they might yell horrible things at you, whatever it may be. Clearly engaging in that is not going to do anything to heal you. So what I encourage people to do if they're in a situation where they really need to process something in order to move on and to heal is to write a letter to that person. And I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, I tell them not even to mail it, because if you mail it and the person receives it, they of course may come back at you and just kind of re-engage in what we just discussed you want to get away from. So sometimes it's best to just write it so you can process it for yourself, and then you can burn it, you can store it somewhere, you can do whatever. But the idea here is to release and process the emotions that are involved. And some of you may have heard the expression that anger is like holding on to a hot coal and expecting somebody else to burn. If you are storing any feeling, whether it's sadness, resentment, hurt, anger, disappointment, whatever that emotion may be, as you will have seen in the previous charts, the impact of feeling that emotion chronically, it's going to result in something for you health-wise. So the idea here is to identify these feelings and find a way, to tangibly process those things out. And so another really good way to look at that, and I will admittedly say I actually don't like doing it myself, but it's a good way to be really honest with yourself and to be really accountable, is if you go onto the body systems scan, and I did not make a screenshot of that, but if you go to your menu and your AO scan and you pick body systems, that's the report that goes through the various body systems, and it's giving you physical causes for what's identified, but it also is giving you emotional causes for, oops, somebody's unmuted.
Longer than I expected.
Somebody's unmuted. If you can just mute yourself. I can't even see the screen, so I don't know who, but I think it's off. So anyway, the body systems is a great way to look at what your body is telling you your thoughts are. And for me, I know I have found that at times a little bit challenging to look through. I have 2 teenage girls. They're teenagers. They experience, they've had some tough days, and, some days we're just carrying the weight of that. In my own family, we're considering moving to another part of the country. So that is something that I'm kind of always thinking about. And it's interesting to me that a lot of the things that I'm thinking about are coming up on those scans. So I feel like sometimes, like I said, it may be a little bit difficult to look at what those scans are telling you, but I think, being in denial of whatever it is that you're feeling is never a solution either. Okay, so in the Thinkific course, we always provide different playlists. So, of course, our advice is always to customize based on what you're finding on your scans. But Nadia has also created some super cool resources that are posted in the group. Well, you know what? I'm not sure because I'm in a couple of different groups, but I will find a way tomorrow to ensure that the she has dive deep into the cell salts, and it's a great way to sort of scan the document she's made and look for the different emotional things that you may be experiencing and saying, hey, you know what, this cell salt might really help me. The scan, her document covers more than what is available in the scan, so that's just important to mention. The Bach remedies are available in our scan, and those are tremendous. What I love the most about this scan is I tell people I used to travel with like my own little homeopathic kit and some of the Bach remedies, and it's fantastic that now I don't have to pack those things with me. I can literally use them right on my device and get the same energy that I'm receiving from either the pellets or the liquid tincture. Nadia also in a group, and I'm not sure again if it was this group, but she created a fight or flight playlist. Many people may be familiar with that term, fight or flight. But if we are stuck in that state, we cannot make progress with our emotions and our physical health. So one of the ways to maybe have some sense of whether you're stuck there is to be seeing if the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems are being identified as problematic on your scans. That may be evidence that you are stuck there. You may have had a very direct traumatic experience that you are aware of that has you stuck there, but I will post that in the group tomorrow. I took a screenshot of it so that I could share that with you if anyone is wanting to utilize that. Another thing that I like to tell people as a counselor is, you have healed from something, an issue, if you can talk about it without experiencing any sort of, unusual emotion. So you can talk about it as if you are talking about what the weather is going to be tomorrow. So I meet a lot of people who feel like they have processed various events or emotions, but when they talk to me about it, it's just the tears come right away, or the anger is palpable in the room. It's tangible, it's palpable. You can feel that anger. So what I'm saying to you is that if that is happening to you when you are talking about past events, then that is your signal that you have not actually fully resolved that. I always like to say that our brain tries to convince us that we are okay, but our heart always lets us know if we're not. And then, of course, our scanners don't lie. So if something's coming up on the scan for you, it's probably a good time to think about why that is. I am a huge believer in creating routines and actions around the things that we identify, and really hold yourself accountable. We've talked about a lot of different topics in the previous weeks, and we have more to come. And I know, Nancy likes to often say, I know it can get overwhelming, and just to pick things. So, you cannot possibly tackle all 8 modules of this course at one time. That'd be overwhelming for anyone. So I would say to you to think about to yourself, what of the things that you have learned about are likely the greatest issue for you, and maybe start there, with the caveat and reminder: if we are not hydrated and we are not receiving proper nutrition, we are asking our bodies to serve us without serving our bodies. So I cannot state enough the idea of hydration and nutritional balance in order to tackle whatever it is that we need to tackle. So that said, and again, I am at the end, I do have a screenshot of these books so that you can refer to them. In the Dodging Energy Vampires book, Dr. Northrup gives like a really cool and specific ritual that she brings people through to, she describes it as literally cutting ties with whatever it is that you are trying to cut ties with. So for people who need like that very specific, the words and the actions to help them, she's got a great technique in there. I learned from Nadia some really specific techniques that I have been using myself, and I have had tremendous results from doing that. I started using the AO scan because I am dealing with a chronic Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella, tick-borne infections. As a result of those tick-borne infections, I had very high cortisol. My hormones got out of whack. I put on, I think it was like 12 pounds in a year, which does not happen to me. I eat and exercise like very consistently. But I had hit like a roadblock, even though I was cycling on and off of antibiotics. I was cycling on and off of herbs. I really had kind of plateaued in my progress. And so for me, the AO scan is what brought me to that next level. But it's not just the scan. The information that the scan provides is so useful, but then again, it's the actions that we take with the scan. So I used to meditate. When I meditated, I would say I thought inside my head. Now what I do is I literally state the words aloud, and there's something about doing that has made, I don't know, my cells something take the process more seriously. I don't know how else to describe that. But so here are just some examples of things that I say. Like I'll say, I release all that does not serve me. And sometimes I'm really specific. If I have specific things in mind that are not serving me, I can state those things. Here's a really important one. I release all negative impacts associated with whatever that thing may be. So like I will say, I release all negative impacts that have come from having Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella. I state those things aloud. Another really important thing that Nadia talked about in the past, and that Dr. Northrup discusses in her book, is the idea of implants or imprints. And I know the first time I heard the word implant, I went to like dental implant or breast implant or whatever it may be. An implant is something that has latched onto you. If you want to think about like Toto and the little dog that kind of latches onto the bottom of your pant leg and is just hanging on to you. Most of us are carrying some kind of implant or imprint baggage. And so identifying what those things are could be very helpful, but sometimes we don't even know what those things are. And so Nadia was teaching us to muscle test and ask ourselves, are we carrying those things? I would just say, you don't even really have to muscle test. You can just by stating, I release all negative impacts associated with, and whatever that thing may be, write it out so that you can state it out, to yourself. We are all worthy and deserving of 100% of our body and our emotions, to serve ourselves first, and then of course hopefully to serve others. So another really important thing for me was to learn to release all the emotions that I'm carrying from my children, or something my husband may have shared, or whatever it may be. So we really have to give ourselves permission to release those things, and then to reclaim what is lost. Because again, remember, I'm telling you guys, if your anger is like holding on to a hot coal and expecting someone else to burn, that's not what happens. Like, we're burning, we're the one paying the price. So we must reclaim. And again, I feel like stating it aloud is a really important, your cells are receiving that message, just as we started this talk by showing you that how the cellular structure of the water changed by someone emoting, just thinking in their head or speaking aloud. So we are sending a really, really powerful message to the cells within our very own bodies that we are releasing these things and then we are reclaiming, what was lost. So I now spend a certain amount of time each day going through that. Some days it's really short, other days it's a little bit longer, but I think just building it into your routine, committing to doing it is so important. And again, just remember, if you are focusing on healing your health and your organs are releasing things, which they're going to do, there's going to be an emotional component to that. So this, I think that's the whole concept that we're, the chakras and the meridians are trying to show you in this Eastern medicine, is that this is a two-way street. A physical illness can cause an emotional reaction, and an emotional reaction can cause a physical illness. So as we are healing, be prepared to experience both physical and emotional changes, but have some tools on board, like these rituals that I'm describing, to help yourself process all of that. So that said, some of us are really good at working at these things on our own, and other people need at times, additional forms of support. I did just want to mention before I talked about the additional forms of support is that there is a lot of really powerful data on meditation, and that if for people who meditate on a daily basis, literally changes in the gray matter of the brain. This has been measured, it's been shown on MRI. But another really powerful way to look at this is that the Olympic Committee actually did some research on this to help athletes who were injured, who were training for the Olympics. They, if you're training for the Olympics and it's, 6 months away, an injury can be devastating. So they had the athletes think through in their mind, close your eyes, visualize whatever their workout routine and training would be for that day. Just visualize it. And through MRI, they could see that the very same neurons that were firing when an athlete was physically doing the action were activated just by thinking about it. So again, our brains and our hearts are just the most powerful tools of healing that we have, in our bodies. So for me, just coming to understand all of that it's just something that gives me hope, and it's something that hopefully offers you hope. I like to say, seeing is believing. See the life you want. Create a vision board. For some people, just having those visuals can really help them remember, what it is that they're working toward. So that said, if you need things, beyond some of these tools that you can use to help yourself, there is, of course, traditional talk therapy. Most people are familiar with that. Having that objective listening ear is really helpful for many people, and then hopefully that person would be offering you additional strategies. NET, neuro-emotional technique. I don't know if anyone here has tried that. I have. My kids have done it. It operates on sort of some of the very similar things we were just talking here. It uses meridian points. It combines talk therapy with meridian points, and they also have a very large scale study on how people have recovered from PTSD and cancer treatment using having just 5 sessions of NET. So there's a lot of data to back up that technique. EMDR is another one that has a lot of data if someone is dealing very specifically with trauma or PTSD. It's a technique that has a lot of data to show it can be really effective for that. Neurofeedback is a different type of therapy. It works using operant conditioning. It's measuring brain waves. It's looking at what your brainwave patterns are. So some people, when they have that scan done, it's showing that their brain is in, say, a constant state of anxiety, or it might be in a state of depression. So they do what's called a QEEG. They're looking at your brain waves, and then for people who participate in that, they do usually it's twice weekly session where the brain is sort of getting retrained to sort of help it get out. I guess best way to look at it is like maybe break those faulty brainwave patterns. Tapping is another big technique people are talking about. I don't know if anyone's heard of Nick Ortner, but he has a Facebook page. You can follow that for free. I'm going to say pretty often he puts out, free sort of like little mini techniques of how to address different things. Of course, he, like everybody, has people paying to see him and his staff, but I assure you there's some really cool stuff you can learn for free just by following him. And then final point I want to make is, I know in some of the various trainings I've been on with people since I've started the scan, sometimes people will say, I'm doing this and it feels terrible. In fact, I've had some people talk about the when they're optimizing the tones. So when they're doing their scan, and then when those optimizing tones play, they'll say, oh my God, it's like nails on a chalkboard, or I feel so irritated when I'm hearing those tones. My feeling, and I believe Nadia has said this as well, is that if that's happening to you, because these are supposed to be helpful and healing, there is a chance that you could be out of, the polarity in your body is off. So Nadia did a really great demonstration of how to check for your own polarity. But I would just say, if you are doing something that's really supposed to be helping you and it's not working, I would definitely be taking a look at whether your polarity could be off. And finally, some of the books that I talked about here. So Dodging Energy Vampires, I'm telling you, it's just a book full of therapy right there. Hidden Messages in Water, for people who are visual, and I use this a lot with children. It's so powerful for them to see the changes in the water crystals when somebody has said something really mean and hurtful versus something really beautiful and positive. So I have found that visual method is a great way to help children and adults see how our thoughts and feelings absolutely affect our bodies. Gabby Bernstein, people kind of love her or hate her. She's got a lot of books out there, but The Universe Has Your Back. I feel like it has a lot of techniques in there if you're looking, again, for just techniques to help yourself meditate and visualize. I feel like she's got some good techniques in there. Norman Doidge is like, my fangirl crush, kind of like Robin O'Brien is for food. Norman Doidge is that for the brain for me. I don't have this. I'm hoping everyone can see this. The Brain That Changes Itself is the predecessor to The Brain's Way of Healing. For some people, this may be too detailed. It's a lot of tiny print and many pages, but if you're really looking for a deep dive into, you need to read and understand for yourself that the brain can, in fact, and does change. That's the book for you. The Brain's Way of Healing is his more recent book. And then I, of course, put my own book up there, and I put it up there because, as I shared last week, I wrote that book to help people understand, I guess, what a lot of people consider to be more complicated topics. Many parents are business people. They have no background in psychology or counseling. And so, and I shouldn't say I wrote it, I co-wrote it. My co-writer worked in the field of elementary special ed for 40 years. It's sort of our collective knowledge and our way of helping people. Like we break down how the body is electric, what neurotransmitters are, and how to understand what they do. So it's really, I guess I could say it's like a dummy's guide, but really the idea of it was to be a quick, easy read to help parents understand all the issues that our kids are facing in the world today. And it offers many, many, many strategies beyond what was discussed here. I didn't even know about the AO scan, unfortunately, many years ago when I wrote this book. So I am going to, I think, unscreen share. Let's see, how do I do that? Oh boy, I'm not sure I know how to do that. Okay, well, so now I can't even see anyone, but I'm going to try to figure out how I can see people here. If anyone has any questions, about the different things that I shared, which I know was a lot and it's late and everyone's probably tired, but hopefully it was helpful. All right, I can see people now. I can see myself. I've never done a presentation without any sort of visual feedback, so that was a little strange for me, but does anyone, while I am on, have any questions about the topics I talked about?
Hey.
Hello.
You mentioned somebody that did the tap. What was their name? You could
Nick
on Facebook.
Ortner. Ortner, Nick Ortner. I'm blanking on the name of, he has like an institute for tapping, and he actually sends people into schools to teach teachers how to tap and kids how to tap. But he does like these like free little demonstrations, and literally, visually shows people how to tap for different topics.
You
Oh, the
mentioned some other,
tapping solution.
The what?
Tapping solution.
The tapping solution.
That's him. That's his That's his Facebook or YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. I'm not offhand. I don't know it. Like, I have everything bookmarked, on my own computer, but tapping is different than, I also mentioned, neuro emotional technique, which uses combines a little bit of you are tapping on meridian points. So it's kind of it's a little bit of talk therapy combined with tapping on meridian spots to really, the way they describe it is to unblock the chemistry that is stuck in your body from traumatic memories and experiences.
You mentioned something about, it was dealing with emotions. You named, it was like 3 letters.
EMDR? Was it EMDR specifically for trauma and PTSD?
And there was another one right before that.
Oh boy. Let me just think.
Trauma. It was more of a.
I think it was NET. So I think I only mentioned NET, EMDR, neurofeedback, and tapping.
Okay, the NET, is that just emotional blockage? Is that what you said?
Yes. But it also works on both physical and emotional blockages. And as a matter of fact, I can post in the group tomorrow. I used to share an office with someone who did this, and she is trained at Jefferson in Philadelphia, where this technique was founded. And she is amazing. And she moved to Florida, so we were heartbroken. And so she moved to Florida. One of my kids needed something, and she says, "Well, I can do it on Zoom." And I because I've done it, and there is a physical component, I struggled to believe that you could have the same result. But I assure you, it was so powerful. One of my kids had just a real block. I'm just going to tell you what it was. She wanted to play a sport. She was really behind everybody else, so she was really in her head, and she didn't believe that she could be good at the sport. And she really wanted to get a goal, but she wouldn't do it. She would never go for it. She would freeze. We do this session, and I called Dr. Chris screaming and crying. My husband calls me from a tournament, and he says, "Cora just got a goal." I said, "What?" Then he texts me, "She just got another goal." I said, "What?" And then he calls me, he says, "She just got a third goal. They just won the game 3-0.
Oh, wow.
And I'm telling you, it's because she identified. So this is how crazy this is. When she was in 2nd grade, a boy on the playground snuck up behind her and whacked her really hard with a stick. It looked like, if you'd seen in a movie when someone gets whipped, it left a mark on her back. I'm still traumatized by it. So she says to me, "Well, think about it, Monica. They're wielding a field hockey stick." So in her mind, she was becoming, even though she wanted so desperately to play the sport, there was something blocking her from really being able to play the sport. Cleared that blockage over a Zoom session, and now the kid has been playing tournaments on the weekends. And she doesn't always score 3 goals, but she's able to participate in that sport, and that has been life-changing for her. So you can work on emotional things. I've worked on processing my trauma of my firstborn. Had very, very serious health issues in the first few years of her life. Once you clear once you get past all that and your kid's healthy and well, you just want to be happy about it, but you realize you're carrying baggage from that. So, I would do a session with her, and I would feel like someone just lifted 500 pounds from my body.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
So NET is, I'm a big believer in it. I've not personally ever done EMDR, nor has anyone in my household, but I know I have friends who've done it. I have a sister who's done it. It's highly effective for PTSD. In fact, it's now the primary intervention for veterans with PTSD, being offered at the VA hospitals around the country. So, I'm only mentioning things that I really either have firsthand experience or have seen. other people really benefit from. And again, that's really the main reason why I wrote this book. At the end of the book, the whole last chapter is outlining various alternative therapies. Some are emotional, some are physical. The tough part about that is, most of the time we're paying out of pocket for these things. And so that can be tough. I can tell you Dr. Chris Hannafin, and I'll put her information up tomorrow, is very reasonable compared to what other people are charging. So I'm happy to share that information in the group tomorrow if anyone's looking for NET. And of course, the NET people have their own website, so you can, there's a search feature on it. You can find a practitioner in your city, in your area. Of course, there may not be one, but you can at least search.
I'm interested in her information.
Yes, I will post that in the group tomorrow.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yep. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Liz. Thank you so much, Monica. I appreciate it. I try to catch as much as I can, and I really appreciate the information you shared with us. This may not have a lot to do with what you've mentioned, what you spoke about today, but you did mention at some point while we are scanning. I'm still pretty new to the AO scanner, and I'm still trying to figure out where to find information with a group.
Yep.
So if you can help direct me, that would be great. So a couple of questions that came up for me are,
Yep.
While scanning, like doing our comprehensive and our vitals, you mentioned, people listening or not, is it most beneficial for us to listen to while it is scanning, like the scan? So with headphones or without headphones, or is it not necessary?
So you're talking about the optimizing tones.
Correct.
Yeah. So I've heard all different perspectives on that. I can only tell you how I use it, which is when I'm running a scan, I tend to be focused on the fact that I'm running a scan and actively listening to the tones. But I know people who say, maybe they're typing work emails and they have that going on next to them. And so I cannot vouch for what their results may be, but like I know for myself, cortisol was a problem. Sedimentation rate is very common in people with Lyme disease. It's a marker of inflammation. C6 peptide. Those things were all chronically elevated for me in the fall while taking antibiotics and herbs. And then I stopped it all, and I have only been using the tones, and I have had the blood work, and those things have come down dramatically.
Okay.
So I would say I'm focused on listening to the
scans and tuning in.
Yes, that's how I have used it, but I can't say that somebody else would not get the same results by not doing that.
Okay. Do you know what is recommended and what would be like a good source to really get to, not just subjective, but by, I guess, like maybe, is there a resource for us to understand the scanner and its recommendations and benefits a little bit more deeply?
So I have not, I'm going to admit, I have not watched all the Solex training videos. I've watched some of them. And I know that there's the YouTube channel that has, where there's different topics that have been highlighted. I will say to you that I have come to using this after a 15-year journey of practicing integrative and alternative treatments for myself and my children. So I feel like I have an MD degree. I do not have an MD degree, but so when I'm looking at the various categories on the scan, like I just know what they mean because I've had a doctor talk to me about what they mean. So I guess like for me, it's really quick and easy to draw the information from the scan. But I would say to you that, in that back office, there's the training videos, and those I think, bring people through, I'm going to say, the basics. But at the same time, just as an example, I was not at the end of, I think it's the body system scan. It has the hormone panel. And I do have thyroid issues, and I am in premenopause. So I, have declining hormones, whatnot. So one day I had looked at that in more detail, and I was feeling like I wanted some more information. And so I went on Google and I typed in AO scan hormone panel, and then I found this amazing chart that helped me understand it all in great detail. So I would just say to you, I think that Solex does have a lot of information available, whether it's through the back office, the YouTube channel, or if you just Google, you're going to find, someone has posted the information somewhere, and it's just quicker and easier to find sometimes that way.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Another question I have, we all talk about water and we all know how important water is.
Yes.
A lot of what I've been doing is, Nadia's gotten me started, and then a lot of it is sort of intuitive and just by playing around. But I
Mhm.
do feel like there are things that I maybe need more guidance than I than just intuitively playing around with it.
Mhm.
With the water, do you know, and if you can direct me to, if you don't feel like this is a place to discuss it, that would
Yep.
be awesome too. Like, I think I was doing it wrong. Like, I believe you just go to your Cephi,
Uh-huh.
and then you just go to imprint.
Yep.
Make sure, and if I'm imprinting, so imprint is more beneficial than let me just look at it so I'm not misspeaking. So just go to Cephi and then you go and you can imprint it. That's the most ideal way. I'm sorry, will
Yes,
erase.
but assuming
Yeah,
you are using glass, right?
correct. Hmm.
Yeah, your water has to be in glass. Yes, and I always say if you know, like my friends come to my house with jugs of water. I have a well, and we've put in an amazing system. We've had it tested like from a gazillion different angles, so I know I have great water. So if you
Awesome.
happen to have a friend who has a well that you know has good water, you may consider just like literally filling up jugs of water. Um,
Hmm.
I used to go up vacation in the Adirondacks. Well, I still go up to vacation in the Adirondacks, but there's actually like springs that different towns have put in where people can go fill up their jugs with just ice cold water that's coming from
Yes, that's
250
ideal.
feet down. But yeah, so if you're stuck with tap water, in my previous house we had that. We did get a like Blue Rhino, for example, makes a whole house filtration system that was, I'm gonna say reasonable. I guess I thought at the time it was $3,000 for the system plus installation. I guess I looked at it. Okay, we're bathing in this, we're showering in this, we're drinking this. It got that water pretty clean. But yes, imprinting water with whatever you want to imprint it with. Nadia gave a great technique. Like I really hate trace minerals in water. It tastes disgusting. So I used to, put them in my water bottle, and then like I didn't like drinking the water, and that's not good. We've got to want to drink our water. So I would just put it in like a little shot glass and just drink that down. And then I would enjoy my water drinking for the rest of the day.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I appreciate the water filtration. Just because with the terahertz, I've been advised to use distilled, and that's just sort of what I've been doing. So I home distill. We have
No,
a well.
I don't actually own a terahertz wand yet, but I know Nancy, when she does her week in 2 weeks, she is huge on using that. I'm guessing Nadia is too. So
Mhm.
I know for people who don't have good quality water, that's a great way to enhance it.
Okay. Well, just in the order, so we would the best thing to do is just erase it, then imprint it, and make
Yep.
sure we have the do we have to make sure we have the target if it's on the object, or is it better to, because sometimes I'll forget.
That is something I have to say I'm not an expert on, only
Okay.
because I don't have to worry about my own water. So it's not like a routine that I'm in. I'm so sorry. But I'm
N-
very
No
sure that
problem.
either next week, because I know Tiffany probably also has a terahertz wand, she might be better at answering that question too.
Okay.
I will
Okay.
also say this, a friend of mine, and in fact, maybe I can get that information and also post it. There's this whole concept of structuring water. I know she bought something, I believe it
Hmm.
was a $500 device that you place over a glass jug of water, and then it structures the entire thing of water. But so funny enough, she said to me, she says, "Oh, I was reading that you could do that via sunlight as well." So I thought, "Oh, that's so interesting." So of course, what I do, I go and I look on Google, and I found all kinds of information that sitting a glass jug of water in the sunlight for several hours, of course, does structure it. So on sunny days, I've been filling up glass jugs. So again, even though I have good well water, it's not living water, it's not structured water. So I've been doing that, and I don't know if it's making a difference, but interestingly, I can say that hydration had been coming up on my scans as an issue, and it has not. Now that I'm just thinking this through, I don't even think it's come up even one time this week, and I've been doing it for a few weeks now.
Awesome. That's awesome to know. I like playing around with stuff like that too. So
Yeah.
structuring water with
Yes.
leaving it in the sun and obviously in glass.
Yep. And just another little thing, if you can see this, there's crystals in here. So, you know, on Amazon, or if I live like New Hope, Pennsylvania is like a really artsy town. There's lots of glass blowers and interesting shops up there. So sometimes you find a store that has one, but you can actually put, there's a glass capsule that screws off in the bottom, and you can put crystals. And then I put it in the sun, and it's like, wow, even, I'll tell you, I've used amber to treat strep throat in our household. So amber, when it releases into the water, is extremely potent against strep. So you can even put crystals in your water.
Cool. I do. I don't put it in that little capsule thing that you have, but I put it directly in the water.
Yep, you could do that too.
I was, and then it kept breaking my glass jars.
Oh, well, that's
So that is something else. I'll if you have any ideas or anyone has any ideas.
Yeah. I'll try to remember to post like at least one brand of it tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, okay. So someone's asking, is there a way to physically print out the presentation? So meaning just having access to the PowerPoint slides themselves. I know Nadia's on the road and she is in charge of the Thinkific group, but I can provide her the PowerPoint, and then I believe she'll be able to put that in the course. So that may not be taken care of tomorrow or even the next day, but we can work on making that happen.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. A lot of good information.
You're welcome. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, we will sign off. All right. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just in general, so I didn't know that there was a Facebook group for this until recently.
Yeah.
Is that where we're posting everything, or is it the Thinkific? Because that's new for me, so I'm just
Yeah. So the Whole Body Reset is the Facebook group that was created for this 8-week course.
Okay.
So I'll say a lot of what we discuss here is posted there. The Thinkific group has like the outlines for the talks. But it does not always have the PowerPoints for the talks. So again, I will, whenever Nadia is available, which is definitely not today or tomorrow, I know, I will find out about posting the PowerPoints.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to sign off. I'm going to wish everybody a good night's sleep, and we'll see you all next week.
Great, thank you.